In today's show, I have Dr. Alex Heyne, who has a big YouTube channel where he educates the world about Chinese medicine and the potential it can have on everyone in the world, because we all love TCM and we know how amazing it is, but we need more voices like his to educate the world. And because of him, I think we all get more and more patients seeking us. So we want to thank him before we even start. In today's show, we talked a lot about his journey, how he came about to learn about TCM, to use TCM in his personal life for his own health, and then Chinese herbs, because that's something he's really passionate about, and you can see it. You'll see his passion for TCM in this episode. It shows, it comes out so strongly. And when you are passionate, you can only be successful. And we talk about success a little bit at the end. So stay till the end because he has some wisdom to share you're going to love. Welcome to the AcuPro Show, Dr. Alex Heyne. And I was going to pronounce this the wrong way, so I'm so glad just before we started the show, Dr. Alex was like, I'm going to tell you how you pronounce my last name. Thank you so much, but I think I'm going to go Dr. Alex. That'll be easier. But I'm so glad you're here because I've watched your videos on YouTube for quite a long time, and I've been wanting to connect for quite a while. So I know you're in California, so you're just south of me. Before we start, I have lots of questions for you, and your channel on YouTube, we'll have the link below in the show notes, but you guys will have to check it out because I love what you share on YouTube. And at the time of the recording, you're already at 88,000 subscribers, which if you do YouTube or anybody out there is doing YouTube, that is not an easy feat to do. It's not easy at all. So it requires a lot of energy, a lot of good time, and spending a lot of time providing a lot of education. That's what Dr. Alex does very well on his YouTube channel. So before we start talking about this, I would love for you to tell me a little bit about your degree, why you went into TCM, because I know it stemmed from your health and your difficulty with your health. So I would love to listen to that story, because a lot of us, when we went into TCM, it was either something we were passionate about, it got us in there, or we lived or we loved, right?
My story is sort of the quintessential wounded healer story that you see through a lot of traditional healers and even traditional doctors through history. My doctorate's in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. My main emphasis is the internal medicine, right? So I have a compounding pharmacy. Most of the well-known doctors I studied with in China and here were internists, so they focused on the herbal medicine. But for me, it's the quintessential story of, ever since I was a kid, I was always passionate about medicine, the area where medicine meets healing. So I loved reading both medical books and reading the stories of like traditional Native American healers. And that became my archetype even as a teenager. And so even when I was 18, I went to look at the naturopathic medical schools because I didn't know what is like the most authentic kind of integrative or alternative medicine. And I assumed I would just go to medical school, then maybe do something integrative afterwards, and then fate or God or destiny had other plans. And I started having quite severe GI symptoms. And to be fair, I was always like the thinner, colder kind of kid, right? But I never complained much about my digestion. And then when I got into college, I started having just severe food allergies, constipation, bloating. And then I started seeing all the conventional medical specialists. At that time, I started off by seeing a dietitian, a nutritionist, a GI specialist. And I remember you go to the general practitioner, they ask the general questions, and then you go to the dietitian or nutritionist, and she said, why don't you just try adding a bunch of bran to your oatmeal in the morning? And so I put a ton of fiber in my food, and I just had the worst abdominal pain so bad I could never sleep. So then she referred me to the GI specialist. And the GI specialist, he's an Ivy League trained GI specialist where I grew up in Connecticut. And he spent 5 minutes talking to me, and he's like, sounds like IBS. Let's just give you a colonoscopy and we'll give you some medication for it and just take this forever and then you'll be good. And I booked the colonoscopy and they put in the order for the prescription. But when I went home that night, I was like, this is sort of embarrassing. This GI specialist does medical school, secondary training, fellowship residency, just to give me basically laxatives and a colonoscopy. And I'm like, this is the pinnacle of modern medicine. This guy is an Ivy League trained physician and he spent 16 years in school to give me a freaking laxative. Like, does this require a brain? Like, AI will replace this doctor pretty soon. And so nonetheless, I canceled the colonoscopy and I was like, all right, let's just see what else is out there. So I saw a naturopathic doctor. This is before functional medicine existed. I saw anyone in my neighborhood in Connecticut that knew anything about this, and nothing helped. And then one day I'm sitting in a cafe and I'm just researching on the internet what I can do for digestive problems. And I'm talking to the barista in the cafe. And he was kind of like walking on crutches, even though he was a young guy. We were just for some reason talking about health problems. Very weird to talk with the barista. But he said, hey, I have autoimmune hepatitis, which I developed as a very rare reaction to a medication for my autoimmune disease. And he said, I don't know if this guy can help you, but I saw this French guy, a guy named Jacques, who is an acupuncturist, and he's right around the corner. You could walk to his clinic from here. And while he didn't cure what I had, he got me way better results and way better clinical relief than any doctor I'd seen, even at the Mayo Clinic. So I go to see this French guy, and he gives me a very simple herbal formula. He doesn't even specialize in formulas like I do, right? A patent herbal formula from 900 years ago. And the next 30 days, my digestion was the best it had been in almost 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember the formula?
A Judanshi formula, yeah. And
Oh, okay,
and
Baoka one. Okay,
it wasn't
perfect.
even like a curative formula. It was very symptomatic, right? But it worked to help with motility and loading and the constant feeling of fullness. And I just thought, okay, in my brain, like my skeptical brain, I'm like, even if this next 30 days doesn't cure my lifelong illness, that was so much more effective than anything my Ivy League trained physicians gave to me. Even if they were just trained to give Baohuan, like the lowest level of doctor, they would have gotten me better results than anything they had given to me. And so my mind was blown. And that was the moment where I realized, there's a lot of clinically effective medicine outside of conventional medicine. And the most effective thing I ever found was traditional Chinese medicine. And I think a lot of our patients say the same thing, right? I mean, you're not going to find any other form of medicine that has the sheer level of evidence and research and historical backing behind it and the classical text behind it. So that sort of just opened my mind, and that was a little bit of the universe's little soul whisper, like this is going to be the path you're going to be on later. What's interesting is I had lived in China already, and I spoke, read, and could write Chinese. And I'd lived in China in my early 20s in Beijing. And ironically, at that time, I only had very low-level digestive problems. So I only went to a TCM doctor once while living in China. But it was actually in my 20s where it really became quite severe. And I thought, should I go back to China? I had a close friend who enrolled at the Beijing School of Chinese Medicine. And eventually he actually said, I'm finding that a lot of the best doctors don't even live in China anymore. And he's like, if I were you, I would recommend going to this school in Oregon. So I ended up doing my doctorate there. But it's one of those quintessential wounded healer stories.
I appreciate you sharing this because it's always that you're sick, you're looking for answers, and it's so easy to just say, okay, whatever the doctor said, I'll do a colonoscopy, I'll take the medication, and hopefully I'll feel better, right? And a lot of people will just say, okay, yes, thank you, and then do that instead of going, is there other ways? Is there other things I could try? And if not, then maybe I can go back and do what was recommended. But is there other ways? And questioning everything is something that I love to do. It's like, well, is there other things to look into? And if not, great. But you were curious enough. Now, I think it's also because the fact that you were already in China before, you don't practice anymore, but I'm sure you can read still because the reading is so much easier because the pronunciation of all the tones for me that's what's harder compared to reading a character. You don't have to pronounce anything. We just came back from Portugal and I could read a lot of stuff that were in menus and I understood it because I'm French, so it's very Latin based, right? But when I was pronouncing it, they look at me and they were like, no idea what I was saying because of course the pronunciation. So I think it's the same with Mandarin. And so when you were in Beijing,
a high school teaching assistant, I just took that first job. And after a year, it was a good job, but I knew it wasn't my life's work, my life's purpose. And I just thought, well, what do I want to do? What would be a really unique life experience? So I was like, what if I just go to China and become a martial artist and a monk for a year, right? And then I can at least have a cool story, right? At the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, if I don't like it. So I did that. I bought a one-way ticket to China. I barely spoke Chinese. When I was in China, I was a student of a famous Tai Chi fighter. He was traditionally a bodyguard. So when you think of like old people doing Tai Chi in the park, he was that, but like the original Tai Chi by someone who's a fighter. I realized after a year there, I didn't need to be so extreme about living a life of seclusion, and I don't think it would fulfill me as my life's purpose. I did martial arts for a year as well, and I realized that studying medicine was more appealing to me than the martial arts. And I realized as I was getting older, time would be limited to try to be the world's best at something that I cared about. And I realized I had more of that intrinsic drive and passion for medicine than I did the martial arts. So after a year, I ended up coming back and going to Chinese medicine school.
That's awesome. When you're 24, when you're early 20s, you're there to search what life is about, what you want to do.
Sure.
And so you may have some ideas and then redirect your path every single time. I think we all did that. So when I went to school in Vancouver, I embraced the whole TCM thing. Not like you, I didn't have a lot of knowledge or anything like that, but I love the acupuncture part. I love that because I had received acupuncture as a young teenager when I had dysmenorrhea. So this is something that I loved. So I was passionate about it. And of course, Chinese herbs were introduced to me. And I was like, this is crazy. I don't understand this. The words are all in Chinese. I have to remember Chinese name when I don't even know what wind cold is. And then I have to remember that Gui Zhi is great for something that is Wei Qi. What is Wei Qi? I'm learning. It was so crazy that I did not right away really enjoy learning the herbs part of the whole program. However, once things started to more make sense later on, by year 3, because I did a 5 years, so by year 3, I started seeing specifically, because now you're in clinic, what the effect and the success the teachers and the supervisors in clinic were having using Chinese herbs. And I was like, this is mind-blowing. And that's when I started to really enjoy and gravitate towards really learning and wanting to learn more and go in depth with the herbs. When you went into school, did you gravitate right away towards the herbs?
What's so unique about the program is they did a great job of pulling in people who had studied with classical doctors. A lot of them had lived in China for a very long time. Most of my faculty did, whether they were foreign or Chinese. One of my very first classes was an herb lab, and it was all focused on, we were decocting classical formulas and trying them to learn, like, what is this weird qi and wei flavor and nature thing that's unique to Chinese medicine? So they'll be like, okay, here's Gui Zhi, here's Huang Nian. Let's sip these and you can learn what they mean, right? And then sit down and just feel what it does in your stomach. And almost immediately I learned I had a very good memory for formulas. I could remember easily the herbs. I could remember also speaking and reading Chinese is a huge advantage, right? Not just translation, but when a formula is called Lingui Zhugantang, that's just gibberish in English, but it's the 4 names of the herbs in the formula, right? So it's very easy if you speak Chinese.
Exactly.
The general interest just was naturally there. And also by coincidence, the doctors and mentors I studied with, all 3 were herbalists. All 3 were internists. It felt like fate for me, that a very clear path. It was just purely about naturally where my passion was and where my interest was.
That's awesome. Again, that's following you, right? The herbs and everything kind of followed you. Plus, you're right. When you know Chinese, it's so much easier because in English, obviously you can learn the name of the acupuncture points, but most of us did it with the numbers, right? So it was easier to remember long one. So when it comes to herbs, that was the hard part. But once you understand what it means, you know, when you're like, oh, okay, Gui Pi Tong, Pi means spleen. Okay, so now I get the connection. But you're right. When you knew that already, it makes it much more easy. Now, when you practice the herbal part of it, what is the form that you prescribe?
We just use granules just for the sake of ease. But again, everything's custom compounded from scratch, right? So I can always adjust dosage or modify the formula. Usually I end up prescribing it based on a combination of the abdominal and pulse findings. So I've kind of synthesized the teachings of both my teachers. One prescribed mostly from the abdomen and one prescribed mostly from the pulse diagnosis. And a lot of the time they overlap, but sometimes they don't. And so for the first couple of years, I just did an experiment where I tracked both every single day. And then at the end of the week, I'd study to see how much they overlap. I find with classical formulas in particular, if you're using less than 8 herbs of formula, the effect is still quite strong, even with granules.
I agree. I mean, you know, decoction is great, but nobody's going to do it. I love tinctures just because personally I like to take tinctures because it's easier with the drops. So, and I also feel like if you treat children, that's also easy and you can take them everywhere. But it's not always easy to get tinctures, obviously for classic formulas.
I don't know the full science of the tinctures, but it's a cool method for sure.
Another thing that I get a lot of people asking is, where do you source the herbs, right?
Sure.
Where do you source the herbs?
Mostly right now, I primarily use Legendary Herbs, Eric Brand. So he's often at a lot of the conferences. I like that his PhD is in Chinese medicinal herb identification, pharmacology, something like that. He and his mentor actually do proper herb ID and modern pharmacological studies, right? They do all the little assays and all the advanced scientific testing to confirm this is the right species and genus of plant. It has inside of it what we said it has in it. And they're very responsive. I can get a hold of them pretty easily. So also my other mentor, Heyne, he actually sources from specific plots of land in China that he goes to himself. He is so cautious about what's in formulas. And I know that they have to be, a lot of them have to be GMP certified and tested for just for import alone. And then often you can easily just request the labs from the suppliers themselves. Herbalists love having their hands in the dirt, right? And getting the herbs and tasting the herbs and trying the quality. Most of the legit herbalists in the field, if they're using raw herbs, they will periodically test them to see, right? If this is supposed to be a sweet herb and it's not sweet at all, and it's dry like a branch, then it's lost its potency.
I love that. So my next question, because this is how I found you, why did you want to start a YouTube channel? And I know your YouTube channel is very educative to help basically the world out there and potential patients and people that are struggling with their health to get education from a perspective of Western and Eastern medicine.
The why is really simple. I want to show people there's a seriously clinically effective alternative to conventional medicine. The channel started about 5 years ago. And I try my best to integrate storytelling with East and West, because if I say constant clearing of your throat, that's spleen deficiency, that doesn't really mean a lot. So what I find is that I'm trying to be the practitioner I wish I found 15 years ago. And I just thought, man, if there was someone who was very good at what they did and took the time to create material online to show just this can treat this, and this is coming from this, I would have been saved 10 years of suffering and probably tens of thousands of dollars. I try really hard to document at least one patient case study per month that we have on my website. I have patients all the way from Harvard law professors that thought Chinese medicine was complete BS, that I fixed all of their health issues, to two people on there who've been to the Mayo Clinic seeing the world's best doctors, a team of them, GI doctors for months, that Chinese medicine could fix. So I try my best to really document a couple case studies a month whenever I have the time, just to show firsthand how well this medicine really works. I have a whole content team that helps produce everything and my film team to make it good. It's worth it because even if people never come to see me, they have material that can help them go in the direction of fixing their health issues. And if they decide to see me, then I've done some heavy lifting already. And either way, it delivers goodwill, right? People can see that. Just my personal opinion, I have not seen anything come close to the efficacy of Chinese medicine. From GI issues to autoimmune disease to integrative cancer care to the most serious illnesses of our times, I've not seen anything come close to what it can do. And I think it would be a tragedy if humanity doesn't know that.
Do you feel like your TCM college prepared you to grow a thriving, busy practice? I know mine did not. It saddens me and sometimes even angers me to see so many acupuncturists giving up their practice because their TCM college did not teach them business skills. This is the root cause why so many practitioners struggle to make an impact, change lives using the knowledge they acquired in TCM school. You have the TCM knowledge, but you're missing a crucial piece, how to market your services. Because if nobody comes through your doors, you cannot make an impact with anybody. I've built a successful, busy, thriving practice. Now I want to make sure that you do too. Because the more of us are successful out there, the more patients will be impacted. I will be teaching 2 masterclasses on how you can grow a successful practice and crush it on social media without feeling overwhelmed. Because I know this is scary and I want to make it easy for you to apply and take action so you can have your best year ever. I will teach you how, even as an introvert, you can market your services without feeling icky and gross. If you're truly ready to elevate your practice, this is your chance. Don't miss out on those 2 masterclasses. Click the link below and learn to implement these strategies effectively without feeling overwhelmed. I love your passion. Your passion just comes right through the screen. You're like, nothing is better. You have to really love what you do. And you could see that it comes out so well. And when you talked about starting your YouTube channel to provide information to, reach people,
Sure.
change their mind, like some of your patients have had, and that is the best. It's funny because I always hear if you're going to start a YouTube channel or being on social media, your audience should be who
Yeah.
you
Right.
once were. And that's exactly what you described. I wish there was someone that, could help me understand this. I think that people are just so fed up, I guess, with the fact that they go see, like you did way back when, and nobody asked them question. Nobody tries to figure
Sure.
out why. They just said, well, take this, take that, and there's no looking for the root cause. So I think they are looking for other solution. And like you said, there are other avenues like homeopathic remedies, naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, etc., and TCM doctors. But I think that with TCM, a lot of people really, if you explain it the way you do in your video, the way I like to explain it, you make it in a way that everyone can totally connect and resonate with, because you could say, okay, well, that pit in the stomach you have all the time and you feel like, oh my God, my stomach is just bothering me all the time. Okay, well, let's look at it. Is this an anxiety thing? Oh, yeah, I never connected it. That anxiety could create a hole in my stomach, which is called an ulcer. And that's literally how it happens, right? So instead of saying liver qi stagnation can create some stomach heat, you start with explaining in the Western perspective, and then you can slowly introduce how Chinese medicine sees it. And then people connect completely. So it makes it easy for them to want to learn more and apply more. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, obviously, in a lot of your videos, you have a team because people don't understand. People do this to me all the time. They're like, hey, can you do a video on this? Can you do a video on that? And, they'll see a video that's, let's say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and they think it takes 20 minutes or 30 minutes to make that video, right? And you and I know it does not. Most videos for 30 minutes, to me, it's a 6 to 8 hour process because there's research, preparation, filming, editing, taking the thumbnails, uploading it to YouTube, doing the description, having this hashtag, working on everything, and then sharing it everywhere else so everybody's aware. All this takes a lot of hours, and I think people are not aware of that. So it's a lot of work. Like you said, now you have a team and people helping you, which is great. Now, a lot of your videos talk about nutrition and food and digestion as well, because you're passionate about gut health, obviously. And so I love that you are doing research and you are learning, because we are constantly learning, even though we have some knowledge in TCM. I love that you're constantly learning. And one of the things that you do have on your YouTube channel, which I saw, was the quiz to figure out the roots. And that's the whole point about TCM, is looking out at the roots.
Unique things about Chinese medicine is sort of like the constant throat clearing. If you see one of us, we'll be like, did you know this is something we call spleen qi deficiency as one of the most common causes? Because people don't really know. I had a patient who had this so severely, he flew across country to see me. And one day we had a conversation and he was like, so where is it coming from? And I said, for you, it's a digestive problem. And that was like a revelation. So I think a lot of what we're dealing with is we're trying to explain where are symptoms coming from, right? Because it sounds obvious, right? Because conventional medicine doesn't deal with symptoms where they come from, that it's so uncommon to have a practitioner say, oh, you have this chronic throat clearing or chronic postnasal drip. They're just like, I don't know, you just have something, right? Maybe they'll just give you acid reflux medication, right, to suppress the stomach acid. And it seems to be better, but there's no discussion of, okay, it's coming from this. So I thought, wouldn't it be neat if I just put together a quiz? Why don't we create a master resource that links back to our best videos on certain topics, now that I'm getting a good bank of them? So basically, I put together this quiz. You can look at your symptoms at a high level. Is it more anxiety? Is it more reflux, SIBO and bloating? Is it irregular menstruation or no menses? What is it? And then you can look at sort of based on organ system, what traditional Chinese medicine says is the root, right? For example, a woman can have, let's say, breast cancer. And if she has breast cancer with tumors, that becomes a complex pathology, right? Where there's a root cause and now there's a branch, which is really the tumor. Underlying it, we may say the breast cancer is what we call like liver blood stagnation, right? Or liver blood deficiency. And the branch may be this kind of like toxic heat that forms in this tumor, blood stagnation and this heat. Right? And it takes a skilled doctor to know how to actually treat the root and the branch. But I can say if you're having something lower grade but similar, like fibrocystic breasts or you're having, my girlfriend has a benign breast tumor, fibroadenoma, and she's like, where is this coming from? Is it from birth control for 15 years? Is it from what? So putting together a quiz where we can break down, where are these weird symptoms really coming from? From our field, our profession, thousands of years, doctors said, this symptom comes from this, very clearly, right? You're having chronic runny noses and they're just forever and there's a faucet for months. This is actually coming from your kidney. And it's like, what your kidney? What does that even mean? How could my runny nose come from my kidney? So partially it's designed to explain, okay, this is where this weird symptom is coming from, and this is where a bit of the branch is coming from. So it can point people in the right direction. And then we have a related video on, hey, if you're constantly clearing your throat, which strangely is my most viral video, so it goes to show. And on TikTok, that same video got 250,000 views. It's my most viral video on TikTok. So a lot of phlegmy people, I'm in that club too, but it's apparently a very common issue. I've never had an idea. But I found that pointing people in that direction is helpful with a quiz.
I think quizzes are great because people can answer, and then there's this path that they can take to kind of learn and understand and try to do something specifically. Best food to avoid, best food to add, all that nutrition that comes from the gut, because it's at the center of our health, as we know. And so I love that. Looking at the root, like you said, I think a lot of people have phlegm and postnasal dampness and all that kind of stuff. I think just because of our diet, I mean, I'm French, I love cheese, so that doesn't help my spleen or my mucus forming for sure. Specifically in North America, I feel like people were raised that milk is really good for you, it's good for your bone, it's good for calcium. They had that commercial years ago where it's like got milk and all the celebrities had the milk mustache. That was a huge campaign for people to drink a lot of milk. And so when you start telling people, hey, do you eat healthy? And they say, yes. I'm like, what's your breakfast? Oh, I have cornflakes with milk.
Yeah, I know.
Like, that's a great
sugar, bread, and
nutritious breakfast. I know, it's sugar, bread, milk, and what I call cardboard, because if that can last 2 years on the shelf, it's cardboard. It's not really food, right? When I moved from France and I went to the grocery store, the first time I saw this entire aisle of cereal, I had never seen that in my life before. And I was like, why is there so many of those things, right? And when I started to try them, because people were like, oh, this is what we eat in the morning. So I tried cornflakes and different things. And I was like, this is like eating cardboard. This is so not good to me. That wasn't fresh food, right? So I had a really hard time with the breakfast cereal, but that's what the companies pushed, and that's what people were raised with. So they think this is healthy because the box says it's good for my heart, right?
I think for a lot of people, it depends on where you are geographically, right? Los Angeles is like the epicenter of the health culture. California is like the health food movement of the US. So people here do eat cleaner than normal. But I'm very scientific in the sense that I think that clinical results should rule above all, right? I think if Chinese medicine will continue through the generations, it has to come from very skilled practitioners, because you change hearts and minds one miracle at a time, right? So I think just by showing patients, if they eat this different way, they feel better. That usually is enough evidence for them to see. In one of our medical classics, there's a line about if the patient has insomnia, it says if the stomach has a problem or is not harmonious, the sleep isn't peaceful. And one of my first herbal mentors, he said, the first thing you should do with insomnia is always fix the stomach. It doesn't sound intuitive, but it almost always fixes it a shocking percentage of the time. After that, you can go to treat other heart, kidney, you can treat something else. And what I find is that, so many people have insomnia and anxiety and digestive problems. When they just eat a different way that I recommend and they realize, wow, that was the least phlegm in my throat I've had in 5 years, and then they feel better and it's not as annoying, they can clearly see that maybe there's another way to live.
That's a good point. I remember the first time I was teaching at a college and I walked in and the first lecture is about yin yang. I was teaching foundation. And so I walked in and we are in Canada. It's September and it was already quite cold and rainy and damp like Vancouver is. And I could see this classroom. There's about 35 students. And there's 2 girls in the front, sitting in the front, wearing big sweaters, scarf, and a knitted hat, like a warm hat. And they're both sitting there looking freezing. I felt the room was normal temperature. It wasn't cold or hot, right? But freezing. And they were both holding a smoothie. And they were sipping on the smoothie and looking so cold. So I thought, oh, this is just perfect, right? Because we started talking about yin and yang. And then the first thing I said to them, like, who's always cold? Hands up. And of course, those 2 and a few other people. And I said, "You're drinking a smoothie." And they're looking at me like, "Smoothie is very healthy." I'm like, "But it's cold and you're freezing already." So then I explained the whole thing and I said, all I ask of you is try to eat in the morning or when you are here something that is warm, maybe some quinoa with some nuts and cinnamon and, like a little porridge kind of thing, and see how you feel the rest of the morning. Then have the smoothie the next day and see how you feel the next morning. So it's kind of like
Right.
you're your own guinea pig because only you can feel what it feels like, right? And it was so funny because within a week, they were both having warm little porridge in the morning with quinoa and different things instead of the smoothies. And they're like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you're right." So I love that you took that analogy because it's showing patients, okay, this is the option.
Sure.
You try it, you see what it feels like. Don't believe what I say, see how it goes.
Smoothies and protein shakes. So much marketing around that. If you truly have zero digestive problems and your body temperature is not cold, then knock yourself out, right? But that's not most people. A lot of people, instead of just eating a real meal, it's let's do the protein powder with the ice and some milk or some dairy and some raw vegetables. And I'm like, no, nope.
Nope. Nope. It's interesting because even when you have knowledge, you don't always think. I went to India to teach twice. The first time I was there,
Ooh.
I was introduced to masala chai, this beautiful, tasty tea that has cardamom and nutmeg and ginger and cinnamon. And it was just beautiful and it tasted so delicious. So when we first started in the morning, I had this masala chai and I'm like, oh my God, this is good. So an hour and a half into the teaching, because it was for a week all day long, we have a break. So they serve more tea and stuff. So I have my masala chai. And then 3 days into being there, I'm talking to one of the participants and she goes, "How do you like your stay here?" I said, "Oh, everybody is so nice." And she goes, "Are you okay with your digestion? Because a lot of people that come to India, they all get diarrhea and we're worried you're going to get diarrhea." And I look at her and I go, "Actually, it's the opposite. I don't know what's happening. Everybody's like, oh, you're going to get diarrhea in India. I've been constipated for the last 2 days." And then she looks at me while I'm sipping my masala chai, not thinking, and she goes, "How many of those are you having a day?" I'm like, "I don't know, 7 to 10. They're so delicious." She goes, "Clara, ginger's drying, cardamon's drying, nutmeg is drying." And I'm like, oh
Sure.
my gosh, come on. But it was so funny. I'm like, oh my God, I knew better. I have one more question.
Yep.
I know you have a book that's called Master the Day. Love the title.
I originally wrote the book for people who wanted to lose weight in a healthy way, but nothing in the book is written about exercise or diet, what to eat. It's all written about human nature and behavior. So the whole book is written about how do you change who you are if who you are is not creating the kind of person you want to be. So really the whole idea is the way, like for example, in America and maybe the rest of the world, people fantasize about the wedding day, right? People are so obsessed, they spend all this money, we spend months, years preparing for this, but the wedding is just one day. And at best, the marriage is a lifetime. So theoretically, what we should be doing is preparing for the marriage, which is really the little day-to-day things, right? It's like maybe buying your spouse the muesli they really like, or the cup of coffee, or not saying that thing, or saying that thing, or cleaning up. So it's the little things that create the big things in life. The problem is it takes a lot of self-awareness to be aware of those little things, because that's thousands of little behaviors and habits we do on a daily basis. And so what I realized with my clients at the time, I was a personal trainer way back when, if I helped them figure out what daily habits they have to do, it was more effective than setting goals. And so the daily habits will help you become the kind of person you want to be. Master of the Day is very good if you're interested in trying to change your health by changing tiny daily habits and rituals. So that's on Amazon.
Oh my gosh, you are my little TCM brother from another mother, I guess. First of all, before I went into TCM and went back to school, I was managing fitness club and I was a personal trainer in Vancouver. So I did that for 15 years. So here you go. So I totally know where you're coming from with that. And then the second part is I love that because I feel like everything we do daily is compounding. It's like interest. And if we don't have the interest, if we do meditation once, not going to do anything. If we brush our teeth once, not going to do anything. If we sleep well one night, it's not going to do anything. But if we sleep well every night, brush our teeth, eat well, do all those little steps, you're absolutely right. It makes a huge impact at the end. Like once you accumulate or compound all those interests you deposited. And I feel like that's also how acupuncture and TCM works. It's being consistent. If you want results, it's not going to be that one time and then it's over. Like if you take your herbs one day, it's not going to do anything, right? Like you need to be consistent and little small habits. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one single step, right? That's exactly it. But you got to repeat that step over and over and over until you get there. So I appreciate that you sharing that, because that's one of my favorite things to talk about is like when I started online, I started with Facebook and I wanted to create content for my students so they could have something to look at every day, something visual. So it was mostly for my students. But I remember telling myself, I am going to publish every single day at 6 p.m. for a year. That's the step. Every day at 6 p.m. I didn't schedule anything. I just show up 6 p.m. and I publish something. And eventually I learned to schedule, so I didn't have to do it every day. But that was the step. And suddenly within a few months, I get 10,000 people saying, I want to know more and I want your help more. I want your support more. And you're like, whoa. But that's that consistency. If you don't show up, it is not going to compound into the impact you want to have for yourself or for other people when you serve other people.
Very true.
Yeah. If you have any parting words of wisdom for new practitioners out there, students that are finishing school and are probably a little bit, what's the word, nervous about being out in the world, growing their practice, treating patients. If there's anything you would love to share, because a lot of them don't speak Chinese, have never been to China. I feel like I see that a lot. People reach out and they're like, I feel like I don't know enough. I'm like, nobody knows enough. This is the kind of medicine that you can learn forever and ever, but it's your intention, right? Going with your intention and positivity.
Every day you have to commit to two things, right? These are the two tiny little habits to master the day. One is you have to focus on being a master of your craft, which from my personal point of view is study at least an hour a day. If you can put in 1 hour a day of studying, you're going to get better every single year. The second thing is you also have to be a good entrepreneur if you're going to be in business for yourself. And so the two skills you need to learn are mastery of your craft, which means study your craft every single day. And the second is learning how to be a good business owner, right? Because if you decide that private practice is going to be your primary goal, your main issue is going to be how do you help the people who need your help find you? You solve that one problem, you will be busy until the day you die. So the two skills to cultivate are you have to be studying every day to be as good as possible, finding the mentors, constantly sharpening the iron. And then you also have to be figuring out, how do I help the people find me that need my help? If you do those two things every single day, you'll be both fulfilled and very, very successful. And there's no upper limit to how fulfilled or successful you can be. If you want to just take home 10K a month, that's like, this is my great life and work a couple days a week, you can do it. If you want to be a multimillionaire with traditional Chinese medicine, you can do it. If you want to work part-time, if you want to work 100 hours a week, if you want to take summers off and go to Europe, you can do it, right? So those two things, I think, if you open a restaurant, you have to have great food, but you also have to be smart as a business person to understand, how do I find the customers that need my help? And if you do that, you won't be disappointed, wondering, why don't all these people know about me, right? Those two things are really the essential pillars day to day. And then life can be anything you want it to be.
Beautiful. I love it because when I first came out of TCM school, I thought, I know how to help people. I have the knowledge of TCM. I can continue to learn and take workshop and seminars and read books. This is
Most
great.
of us don't.
I had no idea about the business side, like zero. We didn't have any, because in school, in TCM school, in mine anyway, we got zero practice management, zero business, anything, zero how we're going to do once we license, how to open a place, how. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about tax, nothing. And so I had to go and learn, and it's exactly what I did. While I was reading TCM and continuing to learn, I would spend my empty days, since I didn't have any patients, so what am I going to do with my time? I went and took business courses and how to go about growing a practice. And I was lucky enough that the Chamber of Commerce in my area was offering business courses, even how to do a website at the time, because website just started. And so I feel like when I'm online and I do anything that has to do with business and growing a practice, the TCM community or practitioners are not interested. Yeah, I don't like it. I'm not interested. And I'm thinking, exactly, I love that you share this, because If you're not interested, then all this beautiful knowledge you have in TCM is not going to be
You won't have
useful
anyone to
because you're
see
not
you.
going to help and serve anybody.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's important to be a little interested and start learning basic things that you feel comfortable with
Right.
and look for help so you can serve more
Yeah.
people.
Build it and they will come, right? Hang my shingle and I'm suddenly going to be busy, right? Santa Monica is one of the most congested zip codes, maybe in all of North America, for this profession. But I knew that my formulas expertise was very rare. I knew the doctors I studied with were world class. And I knew it was just a matter of time to help those people find me. So very quickly, I grew a practice despite being in the middle of the pandemic. Right? I had no friends for like a year and a half because I moved to LA at the peak of the pandemic. But my YouTube videos, which I started then, were getting people to find me. And it worked better than I ever could have dreamed. My practice had doubled every single year. The realities of entrepreneurship are why most people fail in the profession, right, and go out of business and are ultimately unhappy, right? They become jaded because a few years into the practice, they're learning if they don't have a high level of training, then the results they get are so-so. And then the patients aren't coming back after a while, and then they're not doing the marketing to always be having patients. And then they're like, well, this kind of sucks. I think I'm going to go back to my marketing job that I had before. And so I think you have to find expert level mentorship and learn how to actually build a busy practice. And your life can be as incredible as you want it to be and even better. People in our field are in our field because we don't like business, right? Otherwise, we would have gone into business. And that's an inherent problem. A lot of entrepreneurs.
Thank you for that. That was a perfect way to end it. So thank you for coming today. We'll have all the links in the show note to your book, to your YouTube channel. If you guys haven't seen it, you can learn a lot from the way Dr. Alex presents the information. I really, really like it because I've watched your videos for a long time. So you came on my feed so many times. I'm like, okay, who's this guy? I got to check him out. And then I started, I was like, wow, this is really good. So I love what you do. So thank you for the TCM education you provide the world.
It's making people seek out acupuncturists in their local community. So I think it's always good for the whole field. I plan to do it forever. So thank you so much for having me here. Thank you. Bye.
I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I truly hope you benefited from this episode, and I would love for you to share it with a friend that may benefit from it as well. Follow the show, leave a review, and if you want more, go to my website, acuproacademy.com. I have tons of resources there with treatment protocols, case studies, free courses, and so much more. And connect with me on all social media at AcuPro Academy. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Pinterest, and LinkedIn and TikTok. And no matter what, keep rocking it using TCM. Please listen to the disclaimer because the AcuPro Show podcast and material shared through AcuPro Academy, which is a subdivision of Natural Health Sense Incorporated, are designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. The utilization of information from this podcast or any associated material is at the user's discretion and risk. This content is not meant to replace the guidance of an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine doctor, medical doctor, physician, or any qualified professional, nor is it a substitute for proper diagnosis or treatment. Users are strongly advised not to ignore or postpone seeking medical advice for any existing medical condition with their healthcare professional regarding any health concerns.